You as a web developer must know how to create a sleek responsive navigation bar because it's one of those crucial elements that can make or break your website user experience. But here is the twist. By the end of this video, you'll not only learn how to create a navigation bar that looks great on any device, but I'm also gonna share a few advanced tips that even seasoned developers often overlook. These are the little secrets that will take your navbar from basic to brilliant. So stick around because this tutorial is packed with insights that could be the difference between a good website and a great one. So without further ado, let's dive in. The first thing we will make is the folder, and we will name it responsive navigation bar. Then open your text editor. Click on File, open folder to choose the Navbar folder. And after we choose the folder, click on Select Folder. Right click here and we choose New File. And we create our HTML file, and as usual we write index.html. And then the exclamation mark to make the basic HTML structure. Well, the title will be Responsive Navbar. Now let's write HTML code to create the navbar. Nav, add inside it an ordered list, and then navigation links are listed. Now Ctrl V to copy this line several times. Let's type some content, Midonaz, about, product, blog, login. Now we will create the CSS file. Right click, new file, and then type style.css. Come back to HTML to link CSS file. Link, and then style.css. Now we will remove any default margin on padding that the browser applies, giving us a clean starting point. Set the body main height to 100 viewport height. Now we will add the background image to our website. Use the CSS property background image to assign the URL of the image file. We always click on the abbreviation Ctrl S so that any changes, modification, or even additions you make to the codes appear on the site. Now we will adjust the background. To make sure that the image covers the entire container, we write background size cover. And to prevent any image repetition, we write background repeat, no repeat. And to make sure that the image at the center of the page, we write background position center. Let's define the font family. Feel free to choose any font you want. For me, I'll choose this one. Now let's style the navigation bar. Let's make the background color white. And to apply a box shadow effect in order to give it depth, now we will style the UL. To make UL span the full width of its container, we will write width 100%. And to align the list items to the right and center them vertically, we will write list style none. Display flex. Justify content flex end. Align items center. Now let's define the list items. Height will be 50 pixels, giving us a suitable height for the links. For the anchor text, to make them match the height of the list items, height will be 100%. And to create some space around the text, we will add padding. The text decoration is set to none to remove the default underline. And to center the link's content vertically, we will use display flex. And align item center. And the color will be black. To change the background color to light gray, we will add a hover effect to the anchor text. Now before we make this website responsive, we should align the first list item, which is Midonaz, on the left side. Everything else will be set at the right side. To do that, we use first child selector on our nav li. Margin right will be auto. Now it's time to create the sidebar. go back to our HTML file. The sidebar will be similar to what we have already done, but the key difference is that instead of arranging everything horizontally, we will have our list item displayed vertically from top to bottom. Copy the unordered list and paste it above. The UL element will be assigned the class sidebar. In your browser, you should see the navigation bar displayed twice. Now let's go back to our CSS file and style the sidebar. To ensure that the sidebar is always positioned on the right side and covers everything else, we should declare position fixed. This will prevent it from affecting other elements on the website. We will set top 0 and right 0 with a height of 100 VH to cover the full height of the screen and a width of 250 pixels. To make sure the sidebar is always above everything else, we will set the Z index to 999. For the visual style, we will use a white background color and add a box shadow for some depth. Now to display the links from top to bottom, we will use flexbox. First, we will set display flex and flex direction column. For the sidebar, to uncenter the links, we will declare align items flex start and justify content flex start. To avoid any confusion and ensure that the list items and links take up the entire width of the sidebar, we will select the sidebar LI elements and set their width to 100%. We will do the same for the sidebar A elements. For the final design touch, we will create a glass effect. To do this, go back to the sidebar where you applied the background color and use the backdrop filter property. This property controls how the elements behind the current element are rendered by the browser. We will use the blur function with a value of 10 pixels to blur the background. However, since our background is white, the blur effect won't be visible. To make the effect more noticeable, so we should make the background more transparent so that the blur effect can shine through. To control the intensity of the glass blur effect, you can adjust the value inside the parentheses of the blur function. Increasing the value will make the background more blurred, while decreasing it results in a subtler effect. Now that our basic design is ready, let's handle the menu buttons. We want to open the sidebar with the menu icons and closing it using an X icon. You can easily get this icon for free from Google Fonts icon. Scroll down to find both icons, select them, and download the SVG files. After downloading, drag and drop them into your project folder. In VS Code, you will not be able to see the HTML code needed to render these icons. Select the menu icon and copy the entire SVG element. Next, you go to the end of normal navbar, not the sidebar, okay? And create a new list item LI and a link A. Just like you did with the other links. Paste the SVG element as the content of this link. Ctrl S to save. This menu icon should now be displayed on your website, but it might not be visible because the sidebar is covering it. To fix this, go to the CSS code for the sidebar and change the display property from flex to none. This will hide the sidebar, revealing the menu icon. If the icon appears too large, you can adjust its height and width properties in the SVG code to better fit your design. I suggest using a value of 26. And if you want to change the color of your icon, you can use the fill attribute to apply any color you prefer. Alternatively, you can target the SVG in your CSS and set the fill property there. Now it's time to bring in JavaScript. We will use JavaScript to make this icon open the sidebar. To achieve this, add an onClick attribute to the list item. When the list item is clicked, it should trigger a function called show sidebar. Be sure to write it exactly as I have, without any quotation marks. Now create a script tag at the very bottom of HTML body, where we will define the show sidebar function. Again, make sure to write it exactly the same way. Inside this function, we will select the sidebar element and store it in a concept variable. So we write concept sidebar document.query selector sidebar. Inside this query selector, We can select elements just like we do in CSS. To make our sidebar visible, we just need to change its display property back to flex. When we set display property to none, it disappeared. By setting it back to flex, it will reappear. This is the only adjustment needed in JavaScript to toggle the sidebar visibility. We can do this by writing sidebar.style.display equals flex. That's all there is to it. When we click on the menu icon, the sidebar will show up. Now let's set up the functionality to close the sidebar. First, we needed to include the X icon, copy the SVG element for the X icon, and paste it into the first link within the sidebar. Since the logo is already in the navbar, after doing this, the X icon should appear in the sidebar. It may be quite large, adjust its height and width to 26 pixels. Next, define an onClick function for the list item and name it hide sidebar function. In your JavaScript code, create the hide sidebar function. You can copy the 2 lines of code from before and simply change the display property to none. This will allow you to open and close the sidebar using these 2 icons. With the sidebar functionality set up, we now need to make our CSS responsive. The links should be hidden on mobile devices, which is why we created the sidebar. At the bottom of your CSS code, add a media query with a condition for a max width of 800 pixels. This means that when inspecting the website in the browser with the device toolbar, you can see how your site will look on different screen sizes. The number displayed here indicates the width of the screen. I want the links to be hidden on devices narrower than 800 pixels. Your value might differ based on the number of links in your navbar. This media query activates when the condition is met. In this media query, define the class hide on mobile. This class will set the display property to none. Any element with this class will be hidden on devices narrower than 800 pixels. Therefore, each link that should be hidden will get this class. I want to hide all the links in the navbar except the Midonez logo. So I'll apply the hide on mobile class to all links on screens smaller than 800 pixels. If I also apply the hide on mobile class to the logo, it will be hidden too in this case. Links are only accessible via the menu icon. For tablets and smartphones, I want the sidebar to span the full width of screen. To achieve this, I'll create another media query for a max width of 400 pixels. Here, I'll set the sidebar width 100%, ensuring it occupies the entire screen width. Additionally, we need to hide the menu icon on larger screen since all the links are visible there. In the HTML, assign a menu button class to menu icon. In the CSS, select the menu button and hide it by setting display none. The first media query assign display block to the menu icon. This way the menu button will only be visible on smaller screens. Now test your website across different screen sizes to make sure everything looks and functions as expected. With these changes, you have created a responsive and efficient navigation system. Thanks for following along and happy coding.